Hi, my name is Elle from the Mage system. I am the host of the system. It is 4 in the morning right now. I tried to go to sleep at 9:30 and my body just said, no, actually, fuck you. My mind didn't shut off at all and my body actually doesn't feel very good. I'm halfway stoned, even though it's 4:21 technically because it's 4 in the morning. Anyways, I don't know if this is gonna be a real video. I don't know if this is gonna be postable because all I want to do is sleep right now, but that's not a possibility. I wanted to make a video about comp cis at some point and I figured this would be the perfect time to do it since nobody's awake right now. I guess I'll just jump into it. I don't really know how to start this. I have DID, right? Which means I'm not the only person in this body. There are several other people here. There's several other personalities that come into my body and act on their own as a result of childhood trauma. If anybody here watching isn't familiar with what that is. A while ago, I had an alter called Max, and he was a 16-year-old boy. And I, as the host Elle, identified as a girl and used she, her pronouns. Now, back then, I can't really remember how I felt, so I don't really know. It's just kind of me putting the pieces together because honestly, from anything before 2 years ago, I have complete emotional amnesia from it. I don't remember what any of it felt like. Max and the previous host that identified as a girl at some point fused together to create me, and as a product, I now identify as a boy. There's that as your background info. That will be used for me explaining part of the fucking video. Speaking as Max, when Max first split off and I had my first experiences as Max, I remember being so sure that I was a boy that I told somebody in my family. They thought that I just must have some sort of severe body dysmorphia, and I remember one of them saying to me, and I quote, "If you are trans, I urge you not to be." I think what they meant is if you're on the line, don't cross it. I remembered that. Now that I have spawned forth as Elle, once I did, I knew, okay, I feel like a boy, right? I feel like a boy, that is how I feel. And then shortly after that, I became romantically involved with someone. Ginger talked about this in the last video. Also, I'm not using a mic today because Ginger didn't use a mic when she filmed last time and her audio quality sounded better, so I guess this just works better. Anyways, the fuck was I talking about? Okay, so I became romantically involved with this person. And I was under the impression that they were attracted to everybody because that's kind of what they told me. Getting into the relationship, before we even got into the relationship, I told this person I was trans. Eventually I started feeling like, hey, I think I might want to go on testosterone, and I told this to them. And I remember them texting back something like, I've been thinking about it recently and I really don't think I'm into guys. And this isn't things will end if you transition, but I just don't know how to proceed from here romantically. But I don't want you to hold back your plans or feminize yourself just for me. Yet, that is exactly what happened. And I find it hard to believe they didn't notice. What ended up happening is that I saw that message. I cried, I sobbed for about 30 minutes. And then immediately after, something happened in my brain and I was like, you know what? I don't even want to be a boy. Honestly, I'm just a girl and it's fine. It's like my brain shoved this part of me back in this corner. And throughout the entire relationship, I started really feminizing myself. I didn't say flat out, I'm a girl, but I just said, I don't fucking know, but I'm dressing like a girl. I felt not like myself, but it was so dissociatively cut off from me because that's what my brain likes to do, clearly. We wouldn't be here on this channel if it didn't. And I guess I forgot who I was and I didn't know why I didn't feel like myself. Towards the end of the relationship, the transness started creeping back in. I didn't know what to do, and I remember like one of the only times I cried in front of them during the relationship was me just like talking about what I wanted and then breaking down because I was like, I don't want this to end because of that. And they said, go ahead. You know, the reasons that I didn't want you to take testosterone were silly. Go ahead. I started considering it, and towards the end of the relationship, I started telling them about my experience as a trans person and how it feels, and I think that they just fell emotionally short, and it sounded like there was just something wrong. Whenever we broke up, part of what they said to me is, I love you like you're a girl. And then once they left, I felt like a breath of fresh air, which is crazy because I was super attached to them when I was with them, but I have this funny little thing called emotional permanence, which means if I can't see you, I forget exactly how I feel about you. Once he left, it was pretty easy for me to get over him, especially since once he left, I magically wasn't near as depressed anymore and I didn't hate myself. And I realized immediately, oh shit, I'm a boy! I can finally do what I want. I didn't even realize I was suppressing it. So now I'm seriously considering going on testosterone. I'm kind of leading towards that I'm gonna do it, but I still need some time to think about it. I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. I still am very fearful of being trans because I don't want to be that one trans person, especially amongst family. If you ever have that one trans person, even if it's your unrelated aunt's sister or your cousin's biological mom's brother, like just like someone distant, and think about the way your family talks about those people. For a lot of you, I can assume that it's not good, or it could just be weird, like Melissa's sister, she used to be a girl but now she's a guy now, and they talk about it like it's this like weird perverted thing. Or they think, oh, something really bad must have happened to this person to make them like that. It's like, once I realized I was trans and I actually let myself accept it, there was a lot of shame because I realized, oh shit, I'm going to become this person. I don't want to be trans, I just want to be a boy. But I wasn't. At least not the way people saw me. Just a lot of hardness came with that, and the fear of change too, because even if I can look down at my body and say, I don't know what I'm looking at, I don't identify with it, and it doesn't make any sense to me, it's still something I've lived in, and it's all I know. So to think, your body's gonna change in all these ways, and I don't know what that's gonna look like, and that's really scary. What if this shit makes me ugly? But I hear a lot of people talking about compulsory heterosexuality, which is basically when you're gay and you convince yourself that you're straight because society conditions you to be very, very heteronormative. I think the same exact thing happens with being trans. I think you convince yourself that you're not because you don't know what being otherwise looks like. And then all these ideologies that have come up in recent years against trans people, something that I spent my transition having to look at because it was everywhere. It was in the news, it was on YouTube. And those main ideologies for me were transmedicalism and TERFs. Real quick, I have an album out that I'd like to promote more. And it's called The Highway, and I'm gonna play some songs from it and put a montage of pictures of my hamster and dog. The link is in the description to it, the album. Transmedicalism is basically when some people who are trans feel that in order to be a valid trans person who is actually just trans and not doing it for attention, you have to want to medically transition, or if say you're a trans man, if you like put makeup on at all, you're definitely not really trans, those kinds of things. Where it's basically very insecure, dysphoric trans people projecting their dysphoria on other people while also pandering to bigots in order to make them like them by putting down other trans people and saying, hey, we're not like these guys. And what this like ideology ended up leading me to internalize was, I'm a pretty feminine person, even as a boy. I behave femininely sometimes. Sometimes I like to put on more feminine clothing. I think that these tendencies within me kept making me think, oh, I'm not trans because I like to do this. If I make this a real thing, this whole trans thing, it's not gonna be valid because I do these feminine things. Or I don't want every single surgery or something like that. And then TERFism. TERF stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist. These are essentially radical feminists that believe that trans women are men who want to invade women's spaces, and they are essentially appropriating womanhood, and that biologically trans people cannot exist. And they believe that trans masculine people are girls that have been manipulated by transgender ideology into escaping womanhood by becoming a man, because being a woman is too hard and traumatic. A lot of it is framed as teenagers being recruited into transgenderism. That ideology sinks in. That's like the main one, is being afraid to tell people because they'll think that you are part of the trans craze and you're just confused, when I've felt this way for years. It really sinks in. I find myself convincing myself that even now sometimes. Because of this, it was really shockingly easy to make me essentially convince myself I was just a girl. That's mainly the gist of it. And then this is also sort of me telling you that I'm more trans than I thought, though I think there is some fluidity to the way that I am. Mostly in society and in settings like this, I want to be perceived as a boy. There have been a load of recent anti-trans bills being passed in the USA, banning insurance from covering gender-affirming care, banning gender-affirming care for anyone under 21, and people aiming to ban gender-affirming care in general. You realize if that happens, we're all fucked. We are all fucked. If that happens, there are going to be a lot of trans people who are ordering their hormones off the dark web because they fucking need them, and this is the only way, even though that's incredibly dangerous for multiple reasons, especially if it's testosterone. And number two, we're just gonna have a lot of people killing themselves. Because for a lot of people, that's what gender dysphoria is like. It's not that I don't think the people passing these bills don't know that. I think they know that trans people kill themselves, and it's a pretty common thing. I think they don't care. And you know what? I think the fucking politicians here don't even care if trans people get their hormones or not. They're just trying to get more votes from other Republicans. We have a bunch of fucking personality disorder people, like narcissists and sociopaths being our politicians, because those are the ones who can manipulate their way up the best. I don't know what the fuck is going on in America right now. I'm gonna be honest with you, like, drag bans? There no public drag shows? What? What? Oh, people can't dress up in silly costumes and do a little dance? Is that bad? The book bans on LGBTQ books and stuff like that, like, what? Transphobia seems to be going through a really fucking rough patch recently because TERFism has become even more prominent with J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, being an awful TERF. So, at the end of the day, I can get testosterone if I want to, and there's nothing stopping me, but I'm just considering a few things. Mainly, I have this weird fear that it will turn me ugly. Secondly, I don't want to be that one trans person. What was the third thing? There was a third thing. I forgot what the third thing was. There's no way I'm gonna remember it. There's just no fucking way. Yeah. I don't want to go because then it's just gonna be like another few hours of just not being able to sleep. But I don't really know what else to say. So I'll see you some other time, folks.